Recently, there's been a massive shift in Hungarian politics. A lot of people watching the drama think the biggest takeaway is that Péter Magyar won. But honestly, the most fascinating part isn't who won, it's the illusion that got shattered. Many people instinctively assumed that being anti-Orban automatically meant being pro-EU, pro-Ukraine, and pro-liberal. While Magyar quickly stepped up and proved everyone wrong, it's really not that simple. In the eyes of many Western liberals, as long as you can get rid of Orban, it's a victory for democracy. But Magyar's real stance, it doesn't fit that fantasy template at all. Sure, unlike Orban, he's not out there picking daily fights with Brussels. He genuinely wants to reset relations with the EU and NATO. After all, he wants those frozen funds unfrozen, and he doesn't want Hungary to be the odd man out in Europe anymore. But make no mistake, he's about repairing relations, not surrendering sovereignty. He wants to carve out space for Hungary within Europe, not just let Brussels dictate all his policies. And you can see this crystal clear on the Ukraine issue. Orban is notorious for opposing aid to Ukraine and dragging his feet on their EU accession. Magyar? He definitely sounds more mainstream European. He supports Ukraine's territorial integrity and opposes Russian expansion. Sounds pretty pro-Ukraine, right? But hold on. That's where the similarities end. The moment you talk about sending weapons or fast-tracking Ukraine's EU membership, Magyar hits the brakes, hard. He firmly opposes sending weapons, opposes speeding up Ukraine's EU integration, and even said major decisions like this should go to a national referendum. Think about it. With the strong anti-Ukraine sentiment inside Hungary, calling for a referendum is basically a guaranteed way to keep dragging the process out. So, the reality isn't Orban out, pro-Ukraine crowd in. The reality is we're getting a new leader who is better at playing ball with the EU, but still has to cater to Hungarian nationalist sentiment. He'll adjust the posture, but he's not rewriting the narrative of Hungarian national interests. Now, let's look at domestic governance. This is where Magyar draws the hardest line against Orban. What has Orban been doing all these years? Concentrating power. He's tied up the media, the judiciary, and capital into a system that serves his own camp, creating what critics call crony capitalism. Magyar, on the other hand, is running on systemic change, anti-corruption, restoring judicial independence, and fixing healthcare and education. This hits right at the biggest pain points for everyday Hungarians. And here's the kicker. Magyar isn't some outsider just yelling at the system from the sidelines. He came from inside Orban's own circle. That's why his attacks on Orban's corruption are so lethal. He knows exactly where the bodies are buried and how that political machine actually runs. But don't get it twisted. This does not mean Hungary is about to become a textbook liberal democracy. On immigration, he might actually be to the right of Orban. Orban made his name building border walls and opposing EU migrant quotas. But Magyar thinks that's not enough. He wants even stricter border controls and wants to scrap the guest worker programs. He's not criticizing Orban for being anti-immigrant. He's criticizing him for being a hypocrite, talking tough on immigration while quietly bringing in loads of non-EU labor. You see, on the core issues of identity politics, border control and national interest, Magyar hasn't stepped outside the Hungarian right-wing playbook at all. What he actually wants to fix is Orban's hyper-centralized, deeply corrupt governance, the deteriorating foreign relations, and the failing public services. It's the same story with the economy. Orban's early survival relied on sovereignty and nationalist narratives. But what's the reality on the ground now? High inflation, low wages, and money flowing into the pockets of oligarchs. Magyar is grabbing exactly at this weakness, lowering inflation, raising wages, taking back the resources swallowed by the crony networks and giving them back to ordinary people. So, if you just see Magyar as the exact opposite of Orban, you're making a massive miscalculation. He is not the great liberal savior the West is hoping for, and he's not going to be Brussels' yes man. He's more pro-Europe, but he won't blindly follow the EU agenda. He wants the rule of law, but he's still a conservative. He's more wary of Russia, but he won't give Ukraine a blank check. He hates Orban's broken governance, but he absolutely still believes in Hungary first. To sum it all up, Péter Magyar is basically a less radical version of Viktor Orban. Or, more accurately, he represents Orbanism without Orban.